You know this sound. And I bet it has already triggered you. If you're like most of the other guys out there, you probably stumbled into one of those videos who tell you to stop watching porn immediately. And if you actually tried this challenge, you know how hard it is to go through the process. But I bet you never knew why. Why is it so hard for you to give up on those videos? Why does this adult content have such a big impact on your life?
Dude, I want to jerk off! Fuck! I want to jerk off! Look at this!
You see, people usually think that this problem appeared in modern times, but no, its story goes way back to ancient times. If you look at some of the cuneiforms made by the Sumerians of Mesopotamia, which basically represent the first writing system ever created, you know what you'll find out? Well, some of them include descriptions of erotic scenes. So basically, ancient porn. Just remember that back then, writing wasn't as easy as it is today. No. It was a more complicated process. Imagine how horny yet dedicated you must be to do that. So the human species had this problem for a long time, but when you look at the science behind it, these things don't seem that surprising anymore. You see, in human psychology, there's a thing called the hierarchy of needs, which looks like this. So this hierarchy of needs basically tells us that for our brain to feel good and completely satisfied, it needs to fulfill all of these needs. But there's a trick, because the needs from the base of the hierarchy have priority. Like if you are hungry and haven't eaten in days, your brain will not just go around thinking, man, I wish my boss respected me more, or I wonder how I can make that baddie from my class like me. Instead, all you'll be having in mind 24/7 would be, how do I get food? Now that I established this, let's look at where sexual desire is located on the hierarchy of needs. Yep, at the base. Which means you can't be truly satisfied with anything above if this need is not satisfied. I know that seems like bad news, but if you listen to the whole story, things will look better. As most of us know, it's pretty hard to fulfill this need in an old-fashioned way, mainly because that will involve actually talking to a woman. I know, I'm as scared as you are, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. Because here comes the question. Why is sexual satisfaction one of the main needs of the human species? And with this question, the rabbit hole goes deeper. So as a species, we are programmed to respond positively to some actions that ensure our survival and perpetuation. As a fun fact, that's one of the reasons why we love fast food so much, because this type of food is very rich in things like fats, salts, and sometimes sugar, things that were very important and very rare in the past. As it is to find a partner nowadays, but moving on. How does this programming work, you might wonder? I guess that most of you are already familiar with terms like dopamine or dopamine detox and stuff like that, but if you are not, well, here's a simple explanation. In our brains, there's this chemical called dopamine. It releases when you do one of these actions about which we talked about earlier, which ensures survival and perpetuation. Basically, dopamine is like this thing in our brains that says, you've done a good thing, so you deserve to be happy and fulfilled. After that, our brain remembers the actions we took to get the dopamine for and tries to do them over and over again. So, in essence, this dopamine reward is a good mechanism that helps us go through life. Or at least it should be, but we humans, we are some tricky creatures. Because we found cheat codes to activate this dopamine system without necessarily doing too much for it. And here we go back to the main subject of our video, sexual desire. Usually in the most optimal scenario, you should use that desire to go out and find a partner and, But what happens when you don't find a partner? Well, in this case, your brain kind of freaks out and starts to search for other ways to satisfy this desire. Things like watching porn and... So again, in this scenario, your brain finds a cheat code. But here things become even more interesting. Although you might not trust me, your brain is very smart, and I mean very smart. Once it figures out that he can obtain that dopamine by just searching something on the internet instead of having to go out and try to satisfy that need the hard way, it's basically game over for most of us. Now, every time you will have a sexual desire, he would basically make you find a reason why watching porn is the better option, even if deep down you know that it isn't, because he knows that that's the way to get the dopamine while using the minimum resources available.
Do it.
Of course, another secondary reason why pornography is so addictive is that usually the girls that you see in those videos have the primary traits more accentuated so they can stimulate your dopamine receptors even more than usual. Now that I told you the whole story behind this subject, it's time to answer the question that you probably had in mind during the whole video. If this addiction is related to one of the most important human needs, how do I get rid of it? Short answer, you can't, at least not in the classic way in which you count the days between your sessions. But there is a way in which you can trick your brain even more than he tries to trick you. As I told you at the beginning of the video, your thoughts and actions would revolve around the need that is more close to the base of the pyramid, but these actions don't have to be immediately connected with the dopamine reward. I probably lost you a little at this point, but let me explain it better. Let's say you are horny. Not now, bro, at least wait until the end of the video. So when this happens, you usually have two options. You either go out there, try to talk to a girl, expose your feelings, and probably get rejected. That sounds awful, doesn't it? So you probably think it's better to sit in your comfortable room and just search those keywords on Google. But what if I tell you that there's a third option? Instead of limiting yourself to this approach, you can be smarter and ask yourself questions like, how can I improve my chances of not getting rejected? Well, you can do things like going to the gym, buying yourself better clothes, or getting into new interesting hobbies so you have interesting subjects to talk about when you go out on dates. So now instead of associating your sexual desire with, I'm horny, I have to watch porn, your brain will be like, I'm horny, I have to become a better, more interesting person so I can find a partner. It's easier said than done, but not impossible. Of course, with all those upgrades that you will do to yourself, there will always be this obstacle. You'll eventually have to speak to a girl. Again, I'm as scared as you are. That's why I am rooting for you to try and give me feedback. See you next time.